Fox News alert, you may already know, the FBI Director James Comey has been fired by President Trump just 3.5 years into his 10-year term. He bragged recently he had 6.5 more years to go. That turned out not to be true. Director Comey was terminated abruptly. He apparently did not know it was coming. He was at an event with FBI agents when he was told. We're joined now by Fox senior political analyst Hume to bring a little perspective to all of this. Britt, you're one of the only people I know who actually covered the famous Saturday Night Massacre in 1973. When the special prosecutor was dismissed, you're hearing comparisons to that event tonight. Are they valid?
Well, remember this about the occurrence of the Saturday Night Massacre. The investigation into the alleged crimes of Watergate was very well advanced, and a great deal of evidence of wrongdoing had been uncovered, both in congressional hearings and in the criminal investigations that were going forward. And Archibald Cox, the independent counsel, the special prosecutor had been named, was very far along in that investigation. Lots of evidence, and everybody knew it.
Yeah.
And it was unmistakable what happened and pretty much why. He did not have, as this FBI director had, this long and checkered history in which members of both parties agreed that he had misbehaved badly.
Right.
No, he was as pure as the driven snow, as far as everybody knew. Now, he might have been a partisan Democrat. I happen to think he was. But nonetheless, he had a clean record. Comey does not. So the parallels are inexact, to say the very least.
And it's also not clear to me, as you know, I don't have special knowledge, but I've watched pretty carefully over the last few years. It's not clear that Comey had a recognizable political agenda. He seemed to help and hurt both sides. His problem seemed to be his temperament, his lack of predictability, his penchant for injecting himself into the center of everything.
No FBI director since J. Edgar Hoover has played a larger role in the political affairs of this country as Comey did. And even Hoover, for all of his strengths and weaknesses, did so in a less visible way. I mean, we all knew about him. He was legendary. The Bureau was the Bureau. It had come to be what it was under him. He'd built the place. He'd been there a long time. He was kind of a legend. He was a much different kind of character than Comey. But he was powerful, and we all knew he was powerful, and everybody was afraid of him. You have some of that here as well with Comey. People are afraid of Comey.
I've noticed.
You pointed out in the earlier segment that people were afraid of him. And it's very clear that his handling of the whole Hillary Clinton matter was really approved by almost no one. I mean, for him to say, as he did, that it was his only choice was to be the guy that recommended whether to prosecute or not, that's crazy. The fact that Loretta Lynch was compromised, she did not, by the way, recuse herself.
Right.
She said she would accept whatever recommendation she got. That recommendation from the FBI director should have gone silently to the Deputy Attorney General or some other set of subordinate officials. That's manifestly clear. That's the way it's supposed to work.
Yes.
And what he did was, on the face of it, improper, incorrect, and unfair, terribly unfair.
It was unfair, and there were Republicans.
And
I agree.
Period.
And you saw Republicans taking pleasure in it at the time, and I thought that was wrong then, and I think it's wrong now. You shouldn't have an FBI director weighing in like that.
Yeah, he was outside the lines. There's no doubt.
But so it raises all kinds of interesting questions. What's the Democratic position? I mean, Democrats for the last 9 months, I mean, at the top levels, Harry Reid on down, have said, we don't have confidence in this guy. Chuck Schumer said the same.
Right.
Now they do?
Now, what their objection is, as you heard with your previous guest, is the timing of it.
Right.
Which, this was inescapable and inevitable, was going to be portrayed as a cover-up. Because, but you know, the question arises, of course, cover-up of what? I mean, there's very little, if any, evidence of any collusion between Trump and the Russians. Now, the investigation into Russian influence is quite another matter. That's something that both sides can agree needs to be done, and the FBI is one of the proper agencies to do it. In fact, FBI Director Comey has described it as not a criminal investigation, but he said a counterintelligence investigation, which is what it is so far. So the idea that this is a cover-up seems to me to be poorly founded. But predictable from the Democrats. And of course, the other thing that they're saying is this makes manifest the need for, you got it, an independent counsel.
What are the chances of that happening?
I think they're pretty remote at this point, because it'll be up to Rod Rosenstein, the new Deputy Attorney General, highly respected, by the way, by members of both parties. No reputation for partisanship, has served under both Democratic and Republican administrations. And if the investigation proceeds to a point where it becomes a criminal matter, he may then elect, if he chooses to recommend the appointment of an independent counsel to carry it forward. But I think, Tucker, we're a long way from that point, and it's not at all certain that we're ever going to get there.
So you said you haven't seen an unelected bureaucrat as feared as Comey was in a long time.
Well, certainly not at the FBI. I mean,
right. Isn't that a symptom of something wrong with the process itself? We're not supposed to fear people who we don't elect.
Well, I think it's look. I think it's something was wrong with this particular director. I think he's a talented guy. I think he's a very smart guy.
Clearly.
He's very well spoken. Makes a very good case for himself when he appears. But I think he kept seeing these opportunities. There was an opportunity created by the predicament that Loretta Lynch found herself in, and he leaped into the breach. And I think it's fair to suggest at this point that he rather likes that role. He liked being front and center. He liked being, in effect, the Attorney General or the Deputy Attorney General for that case.
I know we've talked about this before, but it doesn't, I have less perspective than you. It doesn't seem like there's ever been a moment in my lifetime anyway where the rhetoric has been this intense. I was just saying in the previous interview, someone I live near and have always liked and think is a wise person issued a little statement on Twitter today calling this a coup, basically suggesting that Donald Trump is, I don't know what, taking over his own government or something.
That's hysterical.
It was hysterical.
Yeah, it's Trump Derangement Syndrome.
But it was not remarkable because it was next to a lot of other claims of the same kind. And I wonder, where does a political environment like this go? I mean, once you've already called someone a Nazi and accused him of trying to take over the government by coup, where do you go from there?
Well, I think that there are things in play here that we haven't seen before. There is resistance to Trump because he's a Republican and because his policies are not what the left would like.
Right.
And there would be that to any Republican. But Donald Trump is really a very special kind of Republican. If you and I sat down, Tucker, and tried to design somebody that would offend the establishments in both parties, really, when you think about it,
for sure,
we could hardly do better than Donald Trump. Because look at this. Look at the never-Trumpers who are conservatives. They are as rabid and angry in their criticism of him and as ceaseless in it as are the people on the left. I've never seen that before. He's unique in that regard. It is a kind of cultural revulsion at the man. And that's a powerful combination. You get political resistance and cultural revulsion on the left, and on the right, at least in some quarters, you have this reaction to him as a person, which is so powerful, so personal, and I think it seems like it's taken over some people's brains.
It's not about issues. That's what strikes me. I always thought that the left in Washington was the most afraid of, I don't know, evangelicals, because they disagreed with them the most on the issues. But Trump is far more moderate by traditional standards than any Republican ever to hold the office, and yet they dislike him so much more. Is it all about the threat they feel to their own power, prestige, station in him?
No, it's hard to know that. I mean, I'm not well equipped to analyze that, but I will say that it's quite unlike anything I've ever seen before. And look, I had the same misgivings about him that so many of us have had, all through the campaign. I didn't think he was well experienced enough for the job. I didn't think he, I didn't at all think he could win.
Yes.
And when he did, I thought to myself, I need to take a fresh look at this guy. And then he did some things I didn't expect. I didn't expect the caliber of cabinet from him that he appointed. Quite remarkable when you think about it. I didn't expect that. I wasn't sure he'd follow through from the list of judges that he had given to nominate Neil Gorsuch, who's turned out to be kind of an inspired choice. For him to have gotten through as quickly in this atmosphere as he did was remarkable. And the case against him was almost non-existent. So these have been, and Mattis and Tillerson, and if you're a conservative, DeVos and Scott Pruitt are exceptional nominees. So he's put a lot of his foot right in a lot of ways since becoming president, and I think he deserves a second look from a lot of people. He's not getting it.
To get to the mechanics of what happened this afternoon, apparently the FBI director was at an event in Los Angeles. He had no idea this was coming, and learned about it from the televisions behind him.
Yeah, that's ugly.
What's the purpose of that?
I don't know that. I think they sent somebody to the FBI to deliver the message, and he wasn't there, and they didn't know that. That's what you call poor staff work.
So we're looking now at a kind of OJ-like camera shot, apparently of former Director Comey's vehicle on the way to a speech in Los Angeles, where, of course, it's 3 hours earlier than it is here. We're going to take that when and if it occurs. But this raises the question, where is he going after tonight? I mean, I can't imagine, having watched this guy over the past year, that he's going to drift into the twilight.
Well, maybe not, but you know, he's now robbed of his major platform, and I guess he can make speeches. But think of it this way, Tucker. The last time we saw him in action was on the Hill just a few days ago, right?
Yeah.
And he got questions about the decision he made last July with regard to Hillary Clinton, his decision not only about his recommendation for prosecution or non-prosecution,
right,
but also he lays out this bill of particulars against her, which is never supposed to be revealed, and he defended it. And he said that it would be not to have done that and not to have made the later announcement he made when he reopened the matter would be concealment. Loaded word, if you think about it. I'm kind of wondering whether Rod Rosenstein, the new Deputy Attorney General, just confirmed,
right,
who clearly was given this portfolio to deal with this Comey matter, would have looked a little different on him if he hadn't so ardently defended himself in that hearing, suggesting, I think, to Rod Rosenstein and perhaps to others as well, that he'd learned nothing from the experience of having, stepped in it when he did that last year. So, what is he going to do? Go out and defend himself some more? I think, he has no portfolio now. He has no office, and I suppose he can command lecture fees. But who's going to be listening?
What are the chances that executives at another cable network are on the phone with him right now trying to sign him up as a contributor?
They're probably pretty good.
Yeah,
right, probably pretty
probably.
Good. Well, when you're doing in this business, you want somebody who will be box office.
Yes.
Get people to come and watch. So I suppose if Comey was on, I'd watch. At least the first time.
I would too, the first time. Brett Hume, thanks all for joining us.
Thanks, Tucker.
Appreciate it.